You won't believe what happened the moment my parents read the will. Their faces froze, because just hours before, the worthless painting I created was sold for millions. Hi, I'm Callista Rowan. For years, I was the invisible daughter, forgotten, erased, and betrayed by the people who were supposed to love me most. But this is not just a story about loss. It's about reclaiming my truth and fighting back with everything I have. Have you ever been erased or betrayed by your own family? What would you do if your own blood turned their back on you? Share your story or thoughts below. I want to hear from you. Now, let me take you through how I turned my deepest betrayal into my greatest victory. Actually, there's one more thing before we begin the will. The room paused. It was subtle, like the moment before a bowstring snaps. I looked up from the pattern on the mahogany table and met Thorne Maddox's eyes. He was our family attorney for over 2 decades. He'd seen me in braces, at graduations, even at my lowest after my first gallery rejection. But today, his gaze was unreadable. I caught my reflection faintly in the glass of the frame above the mantel. A photo of the 4 of us at Lake Dillon. Except, in that version, it was only 3. My face had been cropped at the edge, barely a shoulder visible. Vere's smile at the center, Mom's hand on her shoulder. A reminder that this room was never mine. Around me sat the cast I once called family. My mother, Sorrel Rowan, in her signature beige wool wrap and 2 red lipstick. My father, Cadrian, expressionless, back stiff like his tie had been glued to his spine. And Vere, my younger sister, poised in the center like she'd rehearsed this tableau. She wore silk, not sorrow. Perfectly blown-out hair like the reading of a will was another brunch at the country club. When I entered earlier, no one stood to greet me. Vere barely glanced up. Sorrel had smiled that tight, press-on smile reserved for PTA enemies. Only Thorne had risen, quietly, like memory did when it still had manners. Vere adjusted her scarf. "Let's get this started," she said, like she was moderating a board meeting. Thorne cleared his throat. "I received a wire this morning, a final confirmation from Gallery de Roth in Geneva. Miss Rowan's painting, Fragmented Roots, sold for $2.2 million last night." The words fell like snowfall, soft, cold, quiet, then suddenly everywhere. "What?" Sorrel's voice pierced the air. Vere dropped her teacup. The china didn't shatter, but the sound cracked something between her composure and the room's oxygen. She stared at me like I'd admitted to arson. I didn't speak. Not yet. I simply folded my hands in my lap and offered a smile I'd practiced in hotel mirrors, one that said, "I am not who you remember." It had started 3 weeks ago. I had submitted the painting on a whim, a silent scream into the void of online galleries. No marketing, no backers, just fragmented roots. A canvas born from years of quiet erasure. Then, one night, someone on TikTok posted a video. A close-up on the textures, the shadowed woman barely visible in the corner. Caption: "This painting broke me." 1 million views in under 24 hours. Offers followed. DMs exploded. I never replied. I already knew what I would do. Thorne continued, his tone flat but his eyes alive. "The buyer remains anonymous. The painting will premiere at the Roth Winter Exhibition." Sorrel hissed, "That abstract mess?" "Apparently not everyone sees it that way," I said finally. Cadrian's eyes met mine for a split second, then lowered. "This wasn't supposed to happen," he muttered. Vere looked like she wanted to speak, but instead adjusted her bracelet. A man near the door, an old friend of the family, whispered to another, "Isn't that the girl with the viral painting?" I heard it. So did Vere. Thorne straightened a folder. Regarding the will, the revised document names Verdith Rowan as sole heir to the estate, All properties, financial accounts, and personal items fall under her care. There is no mention of additional beneficiaries. Silence. I stood, reached into my coat, pulled out an envelope, walked it to my mother and placed it beside her tea. She blinked. "What is this?" "A certified gallery receipt," I said. "Sale confirmed, value documented, and a framed reproduction in case you wanted a version of me that fits in your house." The gasp came then, not loud, but sharp. Vere's mouth opened. Sorrel's knuckles whitened. Thorne said nothing. I walked to the exit, paused once. This was never about revenge. But now that it's public, why stop here? Before leaving, I stepped back to Sorrel's chair. Took the folded image I'd tucked in my bag, the same one the gallery had used in the catalog, and placed it gently on her seat. Outside, the winter air greeted me, still no snow, but heavy with promise. I pulled on my gloves, stepped into the hush, and smiled. The cold didn't bite, it was welcomed. Because for the first time in years, I was the one framing the story. "You've always been so strong," Mom used to say, as if strength was a reason to erase someone gently. The erasure didn't start with the will. It started in the shadows, in how my name slipped off the RSVP lists, how I was the one taking family photos but never in them, in how my opinions became just suggestions and my sacrifices were repackaged as expected obligations. Being forgotten wasn't sudden. It was engineered. It was a Wednesday when the first withdrawal hit. I was reviewing retirement options for a client, running on caffeine and polite smiles. A ping on my phone pulled my eyes away. $2,500 withdrawn from the joint account I'd opened years ago for Mom's medical emergencies. I'd forgotten it even existed. The transaction? A wire to a luxury events venue downtown. That night, while I made tea I wouldn't drink, I saw Vere's Instagram story. Glittering lights, flower arrangements, flutes of champagne. Captioned, "Celebrating the future we deserve." I almost dropped the cup. I didn't call. I didn't scream. I simply opened my laptop and started downloading transaction records. I called the bank the next morning and revoked access. "Do you want to close the account entirely?" the rep asked. I hesitated. "Not yet," I said. I needed them to try again. I needed the next mistake documented. 2 days later, I walked into my parents' house to drop off some insurance forms they'd asked for weeks ago. The foyer still smelled like potpourri and pride. As I placed the envelope on the table, my eyes caught a photo on the wall. Our trip to Yosemite. Vere in the middle, Mom's arm across her shoulder, Dad smiling behind. Me? I was there too. Or at least my elbow was. I stared for a long time. That night, the calls began. "Sweetheart," Sorrel started. "Meredith says you're upset. She didn't mean to exclude you from the guest list. It was just a tight capacity, you know?" "No," I replied. "I don't know." There was a pause, the silence where guilt should live but rarely does. "You've always been different," she said finally. "You don't need things the way she does. You don't need people. Have you ever discovered that the people who raised you also tried to erase you? The kind of silence that's not innocent, but chosen. If you've ever been kept in the dark by those who should have protected you, leave a comment number 7 below. Now, let's see what happened next." That phrase echoed louder than any scream. It wasn't a slip. It was a doctrine, one she'd rehearsed for years. "You've always been so strong," she added again, as if that excused the silence. I hung up, more out of instinct than anger. The next morning, I called Equifax again. "Yes," I told the representative, "that's my mother's name. But I did not authorize any co-signature, not for any personal loan, not for any credit extension." The woman on the other end sounded clinical, but not cold. "Understood. Because she's a known relative and may have had access to your records, the investigation will proceed under Section 609E. You'll receive our findings within 30 days. Good, I said. I'll be submitting my own documentation too. After I hung up, I pulled out the old photos again, not to reminisce, this time for evidence. Yosemite, 2008. Me standing on the edge of the group, Mom's hand clutching Vere's wrist. Thanksgiving, 2015. Me holding the camera. Christmas, 2019. Cropped again. The visual timeline of being phased out. One memory at a time. I opened the group chat. Family Rowan Hearts. My name still sat at the top beside Vere's. The last message before the will reading was a meme Sorrel had sent. When your daughter is your best friend, with Ver tagged. I scrolled back. Not a single message addressed to me directly in the past 6 months. Later that week, Claire, my cousin, barely more than a Facebook presence, called. I shouldn't be saying this, she whispered, but Mom told me Aunt Sorrel asked the family not to tell you about the new will. Said it would only cause drama. So they'd erased me, quietly, collectively. I thanked Claire, my voice steady. Then I opened an old shoebox from the back of my closet, filled with faded birthday cards, notes in crayon, ticket stubs. Among them, a photo I hadn't seen in years, Ver crying after a spelling bee, Mom comforting her. I was there too, second place ribbon, standing on the side. Let her shine, Dad had said then. You don't need the spotlight, you shine on your own. I'd believed him, until shining became solitude. That night, I sat at my desk. The screen glowed cold against the walls. A low, persistent hum filled the apartment. The fridge, the clock, my breath. I clicked compose in my legal email account. Subject: Formal notice of identity misuse, under state and federal statutes body. To Sorrel Rowan. This message serves as formal documentation that your recent financial activity, specifically unauthorized use of my name in legal credit agreements, has been flagged and submitted to Equifax's Fraud Division. Any further action will be met with civil and legal consequences. No threats. Just law. No emotion. Just record. As I hit send, the message floated into the ether. But this one wouldn't be ignored. It wasn't a cry. It was a record. The breaking point came when I received a call from a close friend. Hey, did you really say those things about your mom? What things? She sent a voice memo. It was me, but not. Phrases spliced together from old voicemails and birthday calls. Reassembled into a Franken audio where I allegedly called Sorrel a manipulative burden. The edit was bad, but not bad enough that everyone would notice. I ended the call, sat still for 20 minutes. Then I stood, pulled out the drawer where I'd stored the backup hard drives and labeled folders. And I started to build the timeline. This wasn't just emotional abuse. This was coordinated erasure. The next Sunday, I visited the gallery. Just a walk by. On the door was a poster. Coming soon. Erased but not gone by Callista Rowan. My name. In print. Uncropped. That evening, I posted nothing. Said nothing. But I did open a new blank canvas. And in pale gray strokes, I started outlining a figure standing at the edge of a family portrait. Almost invisible. Not quite. You call it worthless. Millions disagree. I hadn't meant to go viral. At least, not yet. The video was 15 seconds, shaky, vertical, posted by a stranger in Belgium who'd stumbled into a side gallery during a lunch break. It showed fragmented roots, leaning slightly on a white pedestal, bathed in a shaft of sunlight from a high window. The caption read, "This painting broke me." No artist tag, no context, just raw reaction. I found out when my phone buzzed at 3:17 a.m., dragging me from half sleep. A DM from someone I didn't follow. Is this you? A link. I almost didn't click it. I did. The post had 1.2 million views and counting. The comments were a mix of wonder and ache. I haven't cried at a painting in years. Who is Callista Rowan? That morning, I didn't go to work. I brewed coffee, sat cross-legged on the floor of my apartment, and just watched. People were reposting it, analyzing it, zooming in on the cracked edge, the palette of near grays, the single hidden signature in the lower corner. My signature. Then came the emails, requests for interviews, offers, one from an online gallery, one from a podcast, then a name that stopped me cold, Marta DeWin. She was a curator I admired for years, from afar. She had once launched a now-renowned painter from Denver with nothing but a student thesis show and a single New York Times quote. Her email was one sentence: "Would you consider letting Fragmented Roots Open Our Voices in Silence exhibit?" I didn't reply. Instead, I opened Vere's Instagram story. A photo of her sitting by a pool, sunglasses on, mimosa in hand. Caption: "Let the haters drown." I'm still shining. I knew who it was aimed at. The timing was too perfect. That evening, my name had appeared on trending pages across several platforms. Number Fragmented Roots, number Erased but Not Gone, and the one that stung most, number Forgotten Daughter. Vere had noticed. So had Mom. Sorrel's response was swift and familiar. A mass message to extended family, church members, old friends. "We are deeply hurt by the things being said online. This portrayal is untrue and disrespectful. Please pray for healing." No names, no specifics, just soft bullets dressed in sympathy. Then came the voicemail. It started pleasant. "Hi, sweetheart, it's Mom. Just wanted to check in." But halfway through, her voice dropped. "This little performance of yours? It's not helping anyone. It's making people talk. And Vere doesn't deserve this." I saved the recording, then forwarded it to myself. Labeled it Pattern Evidence 03. A few hours later, I received a second email from Marta. This one less formal. "I saw your name in an old grant application. I remember the way you wrote about shadows. I would be honored to meet you. Not as a curator, just as a woman who saw herself in your work." I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. Then I wrote back, "Yes. But not in your gallery, in mine." 3 days later, I stood in an empty warehouse off Lincoln and 14th. The air was stale. Paint flecks coated the corners. The floors creaked. It was perfect. I reached out to Marta again, to 3 other small curators, one design intern, a local print shop, my former college roommate who once built her own lighting system from scrap IKEA lamps. We planned an opening, and then I posted one image, just one, a close-up of Fragmented Roots, this time backlit. Below it, the caption, "When they cut you out of the frame, paint yourself back in." The post exploded. Over 3 million likes in 48 hours. The comments turned from curious to furious. I recognize this story. She's speaking for all of us who got edited out. My mother did the same thing. Give her back her name. Then came the counterattack. Vere posted a reel. Somber music. Photos of us as kids. Voiceover. Families fight. But some things should stay private. Subtext. I was the aggressor. I posted nothing. But Marta did. A 12-second clip of her standing beside the painting at the pop-up. Art doesn't lie, it reveals. Whether you're ready or not. That same day, an envelope arrived. Cream-colored, heavy. From a local attorney, cease and desist. From Sorrel Rowan. Alleging defamation, emotional damage, threats to reputation. I scanned it. Uploaded it to a locked folder labeled Control Attempts. And that night, Beneath low pendant lights and a string of mismatched Edison bulbs, I stood in front of 73 strangers in a makeshift gallery. I never wanted revenge, I said. I just wanted to be seen. Behind me, the wall glowed. On it, fragmented roots pulsed under amber light. In the crowd, someone whispered, "She's the one." The girl from the video. This time, I didn't flinch. I smiled. Funny how the truth only hurts when it threatens your bank account. The voice in my head said it before I could, but I didn't need to speak. Not yet. The courthouse in Larimer County smelled like dust and waxed floors, the kind of institutional quiet that hums in your bones. It was the first time I'd seen Ver in flats and Sorrel without her signature wrap. Kadrian wore the same blazer he used for family funerals, and judging by the way he avoided my eyes, this felt like one. My name echoed off wood-paneled walls as the clerk called the hearing to order. Rowan versus Rowan, motion for interrogatory relief and probate suspension. I sat behind a long, glossy table beside Emery Vale, my attorney, young but ruthless in black-framed glasses. She smiled like a shark dressed for church. Thorne Maddox, the family's lawyer, sat across from me, his hands folded so tightly the veins showed. He'd once been the only adult in my life who saw me, but I knew today he was conflicted. The judge entered. Gavel. Oath. Then opening remarks. Emery stood. We're here to question the validity of a revised will executed under suspicious circumstances, namely, while Mr. Kadrian Rowan was hospitalized and demonstrably unfit to legally authorize estate documents. Sorrel scoffed, just loud enough. Ver chewed her thumbnail, then stopped when she realized it was being watched. Emery submitted medical files first. Hospital charts showing my father's pneumonia, fluctuating oxygen levels, notes on disorientation and hallucinations. The date of the will? Dead center in the most unstable 3-day window. Then came the handwriting samples. The revised will's signature was clean. Too clean. When placed beside Dad's actual signature from the same week, it became obvious. His natural slant was gone, replaced by a practiced replica. Forgery? The judge asked. Not necessarily, Emery replied. But coercion? That's a different story. Thorne was next. He cleared his throat, glanced at Sorrel, then at me. I drafted the original version of Mr. Rowan's will in 2020. It included equitable distribution, 1/3 to each daughter, the remainder to his wife. That version was notarized, witnessed, and filed. And the revised one? The judge asked. Thorne hesitated. Brought to me by Sorrel Rowan in early 2023. He said, measured. Kadrian wasn't present. She claimed he had authorized the changes. I expressed concern about notarization. She insisted. I filed it, but noted my reservations in internal documentation. You could feel the shift in the room. Even the court reporter looked up. Sorrel leaned forward. That's not what you said back then. Thorne didn't blink. It is now. Ver buried her face in her hands. I didn't know, she whispered, voice cracking. Mom said it was already decided. I said what needed to be said, Sorrel snapped, all mask gone. You, she pointed at me. You never needed help. You walked away. You don't get to come back for the spoils. I stood, not to shout, just to be level with her. This isn't about money, I said. It's about paper. The same kind you used to erase me. Have you ever been pushed aside, only to be needed later when it's convenient? That quiet ache when you realize you were never part of us, just part of the solution. If you understand that kind of hurt, leave a comment number 9 below. Now, let's see how it ends. The judge rapped her gavel once. I'll allow this hearing to move forward, she said. The current version of the will is suspended pending full inquiry. Probate is frozen. Emery touched my arm lightly. Her version of a high five. We exited in silence. Ver bolted first, ducking past a crowd of reporters and camera persons that had caught wind of the viral artist fighting a family estate battle. One asked, "Veredith, do you consider yourself an accomplice to fraud?" She didn't answer. Her eyes welled. Her heels scraped against the pavement as she ran. Outside the courthouse, the clouds hung low, like judgment. Sorrel lingered by the stairs. Her mouth opened once, then closed. "You think this makes you noble?" she said finally. "Dragging us through court like strangers?" "No," I replied, "but it makes me seen." Then I turned and walked away. The sun had begun to sink behind the courthouse, its amber light slicing across my face through the high glass windows. The building groaned softly behind me, old stone and older grudges holding their breath. As I walked down the hallway, I passed the county's gallery wall. A row of framed accomplishments. One used to be mine, a painting I had done in high school, once displayed here for winning the Regional Youth Arts Grant. It was gone. In its place, a photo of Ver, shaking hands with a councilwoman captioned, "Young Entrepreneur Spotlight." Of course. When I got home, I opened my mailbox without thinking. Inside was a small envelope, aged yellow, no return address, just my name in my father's unmistakable handwriting. The note inside was brittle at the edges, as if time had tried to eat it away. "Callista, don't let them convince you that your stillness is silence. You see more than most. That is your strength." Dad. No date. No explanation. But it was real. And I knew it came from a time when his voice was still his own. I folded the note and placed it inside the front flap of my legal binder. Not for court. Not for proof. Just for memory. Because before they tried to write me out, he'd written me in. They always said I was overreacting, until I showed the receipts. Literal ones. The evidence wasn't dramatic. It was boring, methodical, damning in its monotony. Spreadsheets of wire transfers, PDFs of notarized pages, screenshots with timestamps, a paper trail so clear even denial couldn't blur it. It started when I received an email from the Legal Ethics Board. The subject line was simple: "Ongoing investigation update." I opened it with the steady breath of someone who no longer flinched. An anonymous packet had been submitted weeks prior, detailing the changes to my father's will. The email confirmed what I already suspected. Someone had added my name to the inquiry. Not me, but someone who still believed in fairness. Attached were files, statements from witnesses. One nurse, one social worker, both confirming that my father, in the days leading up to the supposed signing, couldn't remember his own address, let alone estate plans. Then came the final scan, a page that hadn't been included in the copy of the revised will I was shown. A slip of paper, unsigned, undated, scribbled in his hand, "Keep it equal. Don't let them fight." My heart beat slow, not loud, just deep, like the echo of something finally returning to itself. Later that evening, I opened my archive again. The folder I'd labeled "Defense" had grown dense. I skimmed through its contents with the sharp clarity of someone done hoping for closure and now preparing for proof. Each piece felt colder than the last, bank logins that hadn't been mine, signatures I'd never written. Documents submitted on my behalf without my knowledge. Among them was something I almost missed. An email from Ver's old assistant. It had come in months ago, unopened. The subject: FW:"signature authorization draft period." I clicked it. Attached was a draft of a letter giving Ver permission to act on my behalf in limited financial matters. Except I had never written it. Never seen it. The metadata showed it was created on Ver's laptop. I stared at the screen and whispered to no one, "This ends now." 2 days later, I walked into the offices of Maddox and Keene, once the trusted guardians of the Rowan estate. This time, I didn't come alone. Emery walked beside me, heels sharp on marble tile. She carried a slim folder marked simply, Exhibits. We were led to a conference room with glass walls. Thorne was already seated, visibly older than the last time, but somehow steadier. He looked up, nodded at me, not as lawyer to client, but as man to woman, finally aligned in truth. Sorrel and Vere sat across from us. Sorrel in her usual beige, her mouth a tight line. Vere in designer black, fingers drumming too fast on her phone. The room was quiet. Until it wasn't. Emery spoke first. We are submitting formal evidence of document fabrication, identity misuse, and undue influence. We are also seeking injunctive relief against continued financial access and public defamation. She placed the folder on the table. Thorne looked to Sorrel. You should read it. She didn't. This is all performative, she snapped. Family shouldn't take family to court. Then maybe, I said quietly, you shouldn't have forged a family to protect your fraud. Silence. Vere finally looked up. Her voice was tight. You think this makes you better? No, I replied. It makes me honest. Thorne turned to Emery. I'll advise my clients to reconsider all prior filings. That was the shift, the first fracture in their defense. That evening, I posted my first long-form video. No dramatic filters, just me. Neutral lighting, direct eye contact. I'm not here to accuse, I'm here to correct. I explained what had happened. How inheritance was never the war, just the weapon. I showed clips of the documents. I masked names, blurred signatures. But the story was clear. This isn't revenge, I ended. This is recovery. It hit 2 million views in a day. In the comments, hundreds of people with similar stories. Siblings erased, parents rewritten, names forged, trust snapped. And then, buried under the scroll, a message from someone unexpected. Claire. I wish I'd spoken up sooner. I knew more than I admitted. I'm sorry. Not redemption, not forgiveness, but real. 2 nights later, a local gallery held a roundtable on art and memory. I wasn't on the panel, but Marta asked me to attend. Near the end, a young woman stood from the crowd. Nervous, shaky. My family told me my version of things was wrong for so long, I started to believe them. She turned to me. But your work reminded me that even a cracked frame holds truth. I didn't cry. I just nodded. They framed me out of their story, so I wrote the ending myself. Years ago, at my high school graduation, I stood on the sidelines as Mom whispered, "Let Vere have this moment." I stepped back, swallowed my pride, and let my sister shine beneath the spotlight. I was the strong one, the invisible one. Today, I was the one to close the story. The courtroom was colder than any winter morning I'd ever faced. The judge's gavel sounded like thunder, but this time it brought calm. The revised will is hereby declared invalid, she pronounced. The original 2020 document shall govern the estate. Callista Rowan is entitled to 1/3 of all assets and full rights to her artwork collection. Sorrel's lips pressed thin. Her posture stiffened, but her eyes betrayed the storm within. Vere's hands trembled as she gripped her purse. Her earlier confidence dissolved into quiet desperation. Thorne Maddox, once the family's shield, stood beside me. His steady gaze said what words could not. Justice was on my side. Sorrel's voice broke the silence. It's just canvas and paint. I met her stare evenly. So was everything else you built on lies. Vere approached hesitantly, holding a folded letter. I'm sorry. For everything. Her apology wasn't for me, but for the world watching. I didn't take the letter. I laid it on a chair beside a framed family portrait hanging in the courthouse hallway, one where I was once cropped out. The photo, now preserved like a scar, said more than words ever could. The media was relentless. Headlines screamed of betrayal, redemption, and the forgotten daughter reclaimed. But I refused interviews. Instead, I channeled my energy into the art I loved. The opening night of my solo exhibit at Denver's Contemporary Arts Museum was unlike anything I'd imagined. The forgotten brushstroke hung proudly in the center, lit by soft amber light. Beneath it, a dedication. Dedicated to everyone who had to prove they belonged, even in their own family. The gallery smelled faintly of old wood and fresh paint. Spotlights cut through the dim, casting long shadows and illuminating every brushstroke in golden hues. The hum of conversations ebbed and flowed, punctuated by the clink of glasses. Among the crowd, I spotted faces, some strangers, some familiar. Friends who understood the cost of erasure, those who had once been silenced themselves. A young girl tugged her mother's sleeve, whispering loudly enough for me to hear. "She doesn't need anyone to clap for her." I smiled quietly, heart pounding not with triumph, but with peace. Later, as I stood near the painting, Marta DeWin approached me. "You've transformed pain into something extraordinary," she said softly. "This exhibit will inspire more than you know." I nodded, feeling the weight of years lift just a little. But even amidst the applause and flashing cameras, the shadow of family lingered. Sorrel appeared at the gallery doors, flanked by friends from the church. Her eyes scanned the room with a mix of disbelief and fury. She refused to meet my gaze, turning instead to whisper harsh words to those beside her. Vare tried to follow, but I caught her eye. There was regret there, a fleeting crack in the facade. Later, a reporter asked me for a comment. I simply said, "This is my truth. No more silence." That night, I returned home and found an unmarked envelope slipped under my door. Inside was a photo, one I'd never seen before. Me, a child, nestled in my father's arms, smiling freely. On the back, written in faded ink, "I'm sorry I wasn't stronger. K." I held it close, the final piece in a story they tried to rewrite. After all the storms, I have found peace and freedom within myself. Honor is no longer something lost, but the sturdy frame I have built with my own hands for my life. Life has taught me that karma is always fair. Kindness only truly matters when placed in the right hands, and true strength lies in daring to stand up for yourself. Those who are greedy and ungrateful will inevitably face the consequences they have sown. I want to hear your story. Have you ever been betrayed or abandoned? How did you rise to reclaim yourself? Share below so we can empower and heal together. And what do you think about the power of silence? Is there ever a time when silence is the loudest voice? Hit subscribe to join me in exploring more raw, unfiltered stories in upcoming videos.